Hi, I'm Amy. Thank you for joining me for this practice today. So the invitation is to take 20 minutes for yourself for some movement and to tune in and notice how your body's feeling. So for the practice, it'd be great if you've got a couple of blocks or a couple of thick books instead. They do just the same thing. And then I've got a TheraBand, but also a yoga strap would work, or you could use a dressing gown cord or a tie instead. So if you'd like to grab those things, and then when you're ready, coming to sit and starting to notice how your sit bones, these two bony bits at the bottom of your pelvis, how they feel against the ground. And you might want to have a little wiggle from left to right to find a place where it feels like your weight's about equally distributed through both your left and your right sit bone. And then can you think down through the sit bones? So thinking of sinking down through your sit bones. And at the same time, think of lifting up and out through the sternum, the breastbone at the centre of the chest. So down through the sit bones, up and out through the centre of the chest. Noticing if that creates any little changes in your posture. Allowing your hands to rest on your knees or your thighs, whichever's most comfortable for you. Taking a breath in through the nose and sighing that out through the mouth. And if that feels good, taking a couple more. Getting interested in how you feel. Staying with this at a sensory level, so noticing anything that's going on in your body. Might be any little niggles, maybe something that feels pleasant. Try not to judge anything as good or bad, right or wrong. Practice is all about noticing what's there. If you'd like to take the palms of your hands and take one to the centre of your chest and one to your lower belly. And begin to tune into your natural breath. Noticing how your hands subtly move as you breathe in and out. A gentle sense of the belly and the chest expanding as you take in air. And the belly and the chest falling as you exhale. Don't worry about trying to change your breath. Can you see if you can allow your breath to be however it is? And you're establishing this connective thread to your breath. And I often like to say to people to use this beat, this rhythm of your natural breath as the soundtrack for your practice. And if you're in a room full of people, it can almost be like being at a silent disco. So everyone's working to the beat of their own breath. So bringing the hands to the side, allowing the fingertips to lightly touch the ground, sinking down through the sit bones again, that sense of up and out through the centre of the chest. And then on an inhale, sweeping the right arm up. And as you exhale, keeping the right sit bone planted into the ground and taking a side bend here. Keeping the breath smooth and noticing how this feels in the side body. And then on an exhale, sweeping that right arm round. Inhale, the left arm comes up. Exhale to sweep over to the right. Again, feeling that sensation of stretch along the side body. So moving in time with your own breath. If it feels too much to lift your arm up this high, if there's anything going on in your shoulder where the mobility's maybe a little bit limited, that's all good. You can take your arm across the body to the elbow instead and use this to sweep over. So we're getting that lateral flexion, that side bend. And noticing maybe where it feels a little bit sticky in the side body, and perhaps in your mind's eye you can visualise sending your breath up and down those bits of the ribs. Try to keep your face soft. And then as we move more into a flow of this, as you inhale, sweeping the arm around, so you're drawing a semicircle, and then as you exhale, gazing up to the palm of the hand, noticing how the armpit almost rises, and taking that twist here. Inhale to sweep back round. Taking a pause on the exhale. Inhale, sweeping that arm round. Exhale, noticing that armpit rotate. Feeling that in the side body. And bringing the arm down. Noticing how that feels in the chest. And then when you're ready, coming back to stillness, and with the knees still bent, taking the hands in front of you, and we're counterposing here, so we really don't need to go too deep, but walking the hands in front of you, feeling the hips hinge forward, so the hips are hinging forward, and we come into a very soft forward fold. Breathing in and out here. Feeling that connection of your hands to the ground. Gently walking them back up. So if you'd like to grab your TheraBand or your dressing gown cord, your tie, your yoga strap, whatever's good for you. And then taking the arms outwards and taking them about shoulder distance apart and just lightly tugging on whatever strap you're using, so creating a little bit of resistance. And then on an inhale, taking the arms overhead, but being careful not to flare the ribs out. So we don't want to come into a back bend. I'm exaggerating this here. We don't want that curve at the lumbar spine. We want to keep the ribs tucked in. Arm comes up. Inhaling, squeezing like we're trying to rip the strap apart, or the tie or the dressing gown cord. And then exhaling, bringing that down, feeling that squeeze in the shoulders. Inhale to come back up. And exhale, take a pause. So inhaling and then exhaling, bringing that down, keeping those ribs tucked. Inhaling to come up. So just taking a few here, feeling that squeeze in between the shoulder blades each time you come down. This can feel quite satisfying. And then when you're ready, letting that go, bringing the arms down by the sides. So starting to rotate the shoulders, so lifting the shoulders up on an inhale, rolling them back on the exhale. Noticing how that feels, and playing around with the size of the circles to find what feels best for you. And then taking that in the opposite direction, so shoulders rolling forwards this time. And then the hands rest on the legs. So checking in with how your sit bones meet the ground, balancing the weight between the two sit bones again. Having that sense of down through the sit bones, up and out through the centre of the chest. So this time we'll come into some seated twists. So on the inhale, bringing the arms forward, and then as you exhale, taking the left arm behind, right arm comes lightly forward, we're not pushing on the knee, and we come into rotation, so we come into a twist. Inhale to come back to centre, exhale, right arm goes behind and we twist. So continuing in time with your own breath. And we really want to squeeze the rotation from the thoracic spine, the upper back here. So don't use the hands to push or try and force. And it can be helpful to think about moving from your spine as this central column that runs down the centre of your body. So sometimes it can be helpful to think about moving from behind your belly button, which might sound a little bit strange, but the sense of twisting from the inside of you out. And you might find that you get a little bit more rotation when you think about it in that way. Let the hands be light, checking in that the breath is smooth, and try not to tense your face. And you might find that you want to give your lips and your jaw a little wiggle, maybe make a little yawn shape as you do this. This all helps us not produce too much tension in the body. And then bringing the hands to centre. And this time we'll come into tabletop. And there's a few ways you can go about doing this. So if you would like to roll over the knees, with the knees crossed, we can place the hands in front of us and then roll over into tabletop. Or you can shuffle into tabletop any way you like, or you can come onto your side again, like so, and then come into tabletop. So whatever works best for you. So in tabletop, taking the hands about shoulder distance apart, and we want to fan the fingers so that the middle finger is facing forward and there's a little bit of space in between each finger. Trying to not lock into the elbows, so the creases of the elbows are facing towards each other. And if you find that your elbows do hyperextend, which is quite common, try to create almost a micro bend, very, very subtle, so that the elbows aren't locking. So finding that alignment where the hands feel like they're underneath the shoulders. And then the knees want to be underneath the hips. So we've got a solid tabletop here. So from here we can come into cat-cow, or that's Bittilasana Marijarasana. So connecting to your spine, maybe even mapping the shape of your natural spine in your mind's eye. Feeling in to your sternum, your breastbone again, and also your tailbone. And then on an inhale, thinking about sending your sternum forward, and this will create a little bit of a dip in the lower back. So we come into cow pose, we're pushing the ground away as we do. And then as we start to exhale, tilting the tailbone under, so we're curling it under, and then we're rolling up each vertebra at a time through the spine, pushing the ground away, and the belly will hollow a little. You might find you can gaze towards your navel. So this is our angry cat pose. So softly moving between the two, taking care not to create tension at the back of the neck, so the back of the neck is soft. And using this as a vehicle to really explore how your back feels. So noticing each section of your spine. How does each part of your back feel? Where does the movement feel smooth? Where is it maybe a bit sticky? And where does it feel hard to connect to at all? So it's quite common that certain parts of the movement will feel quite difficult to connect to. Certain parts of you might feel a bit numb. And then when you're ready, coming back to that neutral tabletop. So from tabletop, tucking the right toe, and this time on an exhale, extending that right leg, and then taking an inhale here, and then as you exhale, with the right hip still square to the ground, sweeping that left leg over, and then gazing over your left shoulder to that right foot, and you'll feel the stretch along the side body. Taking anywhere between 1 and 3 breaths here. And you might want to visualize sending your breath to those right ribs if that feels nice. And then sweeping that back, bringing the knee back down. So checking our alignment in tabletop, remembering hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Taking an inhale, exhaling to extend the left leg, remembering to keep that hip square to the ground. And then as we exhale, right foot sweeps over, gaze over the right shoulder towards that left foot, and feeling that stretch in the side body. Again, visualizing sending the breath there if that feels helpful. Stay here for anywhere between 1 and 3 breaths, whatever feels best for you. And then inhaling to come back, and then as we exhale, moving into Balasana, child's pose, if that's comfortable and restful for you. If it isn't, and it isn't for everyone, you might want to kneel and circling your wrists as well in a way that feels nice. Taking a few breaths here to really rest and pause. Now, if you have a block, you might quite enjoy taking the block and just bringing it to where the forehead is, so just above the eyebrows. And whilst you're in Balasana, just rolling the forehead, so it's almost like shaking the head along the block. And this can be quite a nice self-massage technique, so this is a very nerve-rich area of the body, and it helps stimulate nerves that help us move into a more restful state. So if this feels good to you, if you've got a block or a thick book, if Balasana is quite comfortable, then you might want to roll your forehead along the block. And letting that go. And to finish, we'll now come into a restorative pose using the 2 blocks or the thick book. Or if you've got a bolster, you can use a bolster for this. So using blocks, you want to create sort of a T shape with your blocks. And you want one where your head will rest on the block, and then the other covers the upper back, so the thoracic spine, so this sort of area on the back. So taking real care to lower yourself either over the blocks or the books. If you have a bolster, what you can do is put one block on its side setting and then put your bolster above that, and that will sort of create you almost a little bit of a ramp that you can rest your back over, and this creates a real nice feeling of expansion in the chest, and it can be really lovely for counteracting things like sitting at a desk a lot during the day. So using whatever props you've got, really gently lowering yourself down, adjusting things as you go. You might want to place a blanket over your blocks if that's more comfortable, and check in that your chin is ever so lightly tucked. This helps us move into a more rested state. Allowing there to be a little bit of space around the armpits, and noticing how this feels in your chest and your upper back. That sense of the chest being a little more open. So the knees can come together, or they can stay hip distance apart, whatever feels best for you. The soles of the feet are flat on the ground. Can you see if you can let your body sink into the blocks? body to sink into the ground. So the props and the ground are doing the work, not you. So staying with how this feels. And then you may want to bring your focus back to your breath. Tuning in to that unique rhythm, that unique soundtrack of your breath right now. Getting curious, being with it. And whenever you find your mind wandering, know that that's okay. That's what minds often like to do. But gently bring it back to noticing how your body feels, to noticing your breath. And then whenever you're ready, and there's no rush, coming onto your side, gently coming off the blocks. You might want to take any wiggles, stretches or yawns that feel good to you. And gently coming up to seated. Taking a little look around the space that you're in, noticing what it's like. So thank you very much for joining me, and if you'd like to share practice with me again, I teach online for Upward Frog on Tuesday evenings between 7:30 and 8:30. It'd be lovely to have you in class.